Hi everyone, Dr. Marco here. This week it's a product spotlight for the health tip. So you all know about the brain and making sure the brain is as healthy as possible. Keeping the spine moving is the best thing that stimulates the brain and keeps it healthy. But anything we can do to keep, as far as things we're eating and putting into our body to help the brain function, to really bring it to the next level. So I'm really excited to bring you something called Brain Octane Oil. So you've probably heard in the news and stuff like that dementia and cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. There's a number of researchers that have actually found that using coconut oil can actually help at least slow down or even sometimes reverse some stages of early cognitive decline and that kind of thing. So what they were actually finding is there's a specific types of oils. Inside coconut oil, there's a lot of different oils of a lot of different sizes. So coconut oil has a lot of good saturated fats in it, but there's a lot of different types and lengths of these fats. So the shorter the fats get, the more they can actually dissolve in water. So usually a long fat you can't dissolve in water, and so your liver has to process it and all this stuff to make it kind of be part of your system. But there's something called MCTs, which is a specific type of fat that's found in coconut oil. It's one of the types of fats. There's like maybe 11 to 13 different types of fats in coconut oil. So some of them are a specific length. They call them medium chain triglycerides, so they're shorter than these really long saturated fats. MCTs have been found to be sort of like the key part of the coconut oil that helps the brain function and helps that cognitive decline. Because what happens is when we have these MCTs, these medium chain triglycerides, your body turns them into something called ketones, which are basically water-soluble fats. So they can get into your system right away. They don't have to be processed by your liver. You just ingest them. They get into your bloodstream. They get into your brain. And these are actually an alternate fuel source for your brain cells. And so this green cell here, this is like a neuron. That's the part of the brain that would send signals. So these neurons send these little signals to other nerves and they make things happen. So these neurons here, they actually prefer ketones as a fuel source if they're available. Because normally our brain basically needs glucose, which is derived from sugars basically, or grains or whatever we're eating that turns into glucose, which is a type of sugar. Most of the cells in our body like sugar, and it's an easy way for them to burn energy. So the cells around these neurons that have these little branches that form what we call the insulation of the neuron, this is called the myelin sheath. This thing, of note, is mainly made out of cholesterol, by the way, so I always harp on that with the whole statin drugs and all that kind of stuff, and cognitive decline because people are taking statins. But these cells here, they actually prefer glucose as the source, but the neurons themselves actually like ketones. So when we look at dementia and Alzheimer's and all that stuff, what they're finding is very often that these neurons, they're calling it type 3 diabetes because they're actually having difficulty using glucose, so they actually start dying because they don't have more energy, their mitochondria get really weak and they can't produce energy anymore, and then they start dying and forming these tangles and all other sorts of bad things start to happen. So the key to all this stuff is, even if you have somebody that's got cognitive decline, these cells are starving for energy because they can't utilize the glucose because of all these problems with the sugar in our diet and all that kind of stuff. If you throw in these ketones, they can switch on again, and that provides them power. So these ketones are really important. So of these medium chain triglycerides, there's specifically one of a specific length that's called caprylic acid, and that's all that's inside here. This is the main one that can cause these ketones to go up in our brain, in our body basically, and really help fuel our brain cells. So when people are using this oil, a lot of people are noticing more brain clarity. This is, if somebody has early cognitive decline, you definitely want them to be taking this oil specifically, and it'll really help charge the brain neurons to work properly because it gives them an alternate fuel source, and it burns really quickly too. And these ketones have actually been found and researched. Normally, for your body to make these naturally, you would kind of have to really restrict your carbohydrates for a number of days. You know, sometimes you'd have to do some fasting or go on a ketogenic diet, which would mean you're basically eating a lot of healthy fats, a little bit of protein, and almost no carbohydrates. So your body is forced to switch over, and your liver ends up making these out of there. Because if your body couldn't make these ketones, most of us would starve our brains after about 6 days, but because your body can switch over after about 3 or 4 days, it starts making these ketones as an alternate source for your brain. But you can actually kind of bypass that, and even if you are eating food that has carbs in it, you can actually take this, and when that gets up into your brain, your neurons will actually use this as the source because it gets them a lot more energy. It actually gets more energy per capita than this does, so it's really powerful for improving your brain health and your brain function. So it's an odorless, tasteless oil, so you could just put it on salads. I put it inside my shakes. They say start at a teaspoon and then just try to build up to a number of teaspoons a day. There isn't really any kind of upper limits and stuff, just that sometimes if people take too much of these kind of oils, they might cause a little gastric distress or bloating or kind of funny feelings in your stomach. And something they like to call disaster pants, meaning you're not sure if you're going to fart or something else is going to happen, so that can happen too. But with this, just take a teaspoon and kind of work your way up to have a bit more of it. So you can add it on, like I said, put it on salads, sautéing vegetables. If you steam some vegetables and put this on vegetables, having this with vegetables is really good because when you have a lot of polyphenols and good, healthy vitamins and minerals and things like that inside your vegetables, they get transported into your body very good with fats. So having a good fat source on them, like your grass-fed butter or grass-fed butter and this, would be really, really beneficial for having those things get into your system to have a really good antioxidant effect and really help your body kind of quell a lot of inflammation and everything else. If you want one, just let us know. I have a few of them, so if you think you'd like it, just respond to the email and say, yeah, put me on the list, and we'll get them for you next week. So we'll see you next time. Thanks. If this is helpful, please share it. See you next time. Bye.